You're laying on the ground. In a bush.
Yeah, do you see the trippiness? Bro, it's like a
No.
full-on psychedelic trip. Holy shit.
Oh
Holy
shit. I see it. I see it too now.
My son, in a mood sort as if you were dismayed. Be cheerful, sir. Our revels now are ended. These are actors, as I foretold you, were all spirits, and are melted into air, into thin air. And like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherit shall dissolve. And like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a wreck behind me. We are such stuff as dreams are made of. And our little life is rounded with a sleep.
Silvage Police Officer Vasquez? Yes, ma'am, and can you give me your address? And how do you spell your last name? And your phone number? And can you describe the suspects? All right, ma'am, we'll have someone right over. Goodbye.
Unit 4106, a 211 purse snatch just occurred.
139 12th Street, 139 12th Street.
Okay, 20 across the border. I'm wandering over in Hollywood Park. Yes. 10 across the border. Shoulder day in the third. And violated. Okay, pride of Ireland next. Well, it was 50 to win. Pride of Ireland 50 to win. Third race, Kelly is 0. Thank you.
You're getting it. Good. I'll see you.
Use of the parabolic microphone was a search and seizure within the meaning of the Fourth Amendment. Second, that it was a search for which a warrant is required. Third, that it was the kind of general or ransack search for which no warrant could lawfully be obtained.
Conducted by Bruno Volta.
The guarantee of security upon the house, papers, and effects prohibits the police from listening in on private conversation. It doesn't mean, Your Honor, that the microphone here was planted 100 feet away, or that the police didn't sneak into the defendant's house and put it there. The Supreme Court of the United States has stressed recently that the Fourth Amendment protects people, not places. What a man seeks to preserve as private, the court said, even in an area accessible to the public, may be constitutionally protected. The Constitution forbids the government to intrude with its uninvited ear into private conversations, just as it forbids the government to send its police crashing through a man's door. The Fourth Amendment requires that before any search is made, in all except emergency circumstances, that a warrant must be obtained.
To what extent do our traditional attitudes and standards apply in the new context of electronic surveillance? It requires no physical intrusion or visible presence of the hearer.
In the immediate aftermath of 9/11,
Secondly,
our government
should the police have been required to take their evidence
our values.
to an impartial judge for the issuance
As
of
a
a
senator, I
warrant
was
before they
critical
were
of
permitted
several
to begin to
practices,
use
such as warrantless wiretaps.
the parabolic microphone in this case?
And all too often,
Should a warrant have been
authorities were
required?
instituted without
We must
adequate
give meaning in the context of electronic surveillance to the Fourth Amendment
Through a combination
prohibition
of action by
against
courts,
general searches.
increased congressional
It's
oversight,
clear on the one
and
hand
adjustments by
that the police
previous
couldn't have said in
administrations.
advance what conversations they were going to overhear on that parabolic mic.
By the time I took
And at the
office.
same time, it is as important as it ever
A
was
variety of factors
that
have
when we
continued to
permit
complicate
this sort of intrusion,
American
we keep it limited to the narrowest extent consistent with effective law enforcement.
The concept of privacy can introduce complex problems. Should the defendants be brought to trial, or should the evidence against them be suppressed on the grounds that their constitutional right to privacy was violated?
The court will take this motion on submission, and you will be informed of the decision in due course. Thank you.
How would you decide this case?
Second, the combination of increased digital information and powerful supercomputers offers intelligence agencies the possibility of sifting through massive amounts of bulk data to identify patterns or pursue leads that may thwart impending threats. It's a powerful tool. But government collection and storage of such bulk data also creates potential for abuse.
Our subject today, should wiretapping be legalized?
Use of drones in the fight against terrorist networks. I believed a fresh examination of our surveillance programs was a necessary next step in our effort to get off the open-ended war footing that we've maintained since 9/11. And for these reasons, I indicated in a speech at the National Defense University last May that we needed a more robust public discussion about the balance between security and liberty. Of course, what I did not know at the time is that within weeks of my speech, an avalanche of unauthorized disclosures would spark controversies at home and abroad that have continued to this day. Given the fact of an open investigation, I'm not going to dwell on Mr. Snowden's actions or his motivations. I will say that our nation's defense depends in part on the fidelity of those entrusted with our nation's secrets. If any individual who objects to government policy can take it into their own hands to publicly disclose classified information, then we will not be able to keep our people safe or conduct foreign policy. Moreover, the sensational way in which these disclosures have come out has often shed more heat than light, while revealing methods to our adversaries that could impact our operations in ways that we may not fully understand for years to come.
In accordance with the new state law, suspects must submit to interrogation while linked to the machine.
It would be best, of course, if this was done voluntarily.
No.
I would ask that you consider this request carefully. In that event, the state would be forced to get a court order to compel you to submit to an interrogation while linked to this machine.
Am I allowed to get an attorney?
Of course.
The Fifth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States says, "No person shall be compelled to be a witness against himself in a criminal case."
The vulnerabilities to privacy that exist in a world where transactions are recorded, and email and text and messages are stored, and even our movements can increasingly be tracked through the GPS on our phones. Third, there was a recognition by all who participated in these reviews that the challenges to our privacy do not come from government alone. Corporations of all shapes and sizes track what you buy, store and analyze our data, and use it for commercial purposes. That's how those targeted ads pop up on your computer and your smartphone periodically.
It has developed electronic eyes to scan our streets and our cell phones to spy on us.
Step 2.
It has
instructed
electronic
the
dossiers which computerize and record and memorize every detail of our personal lives.
To develop options for a new approach.
And now the state seeks to peer inside the core of human personality, inside the sanctuary of the soul itself. Whatever security is gained by this, Your Honor, is not worth the price in human dignity.
They will report back to me.
And who's to say that once inside the mind, the state will not inspect our political thoughts, sexual indiscretions, emotional problems, and every illegality we have ever committed? And what guarantee do we have that this horrendous machine is not going to be used for tyranny? That it will not be directed against critics of the state? Who will dare criticize the state when it has such an enormously powerful weapon? We want to progress through technology. We do not want technology to consume us. I urge Your Honor to reject the forced use of this machine as unconstitutional.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm a political science professor here at the university. I've been asked by the administration and by the Student Council to serve as an impartial hearing officer in cases of this sort.
Whether it's the ability of individuals to communicate ideas, to access information that would have once filled every great library in every country in the world, or to forge bonds with people on the other sides of the globe. Technology is remaking what is possible for individuals, for institutions, and for the international order. So while the reforms that I've announced will point us in a new direction, I am mindful that more work will be needed in the future. One thing I'm certain of, this debate will make us strong. And I also know that in this time of change, the United States of America will have to lead. It may seem sometimes that America is being held to a different standard. And I'll admit, the readiness of some to assume the worst motives by our government can be frustrating. No one expects China to have an open debate about their surveillance program, or Russia to take privacy concerns of citizens in other places into account. But let's remember, we are held to a different standard precisely because we have been at the forefront of defending personal privacy and human dignity. As the nation that developed the internet, the world expects us to ensure that the digital revolution works as a tool for individual empowerment, not government control.
I was still trying to convince myself that there was a big difference.
Totalitarianism, fascism, communism. The world expects
which is the Chinese government applied it to everyone, and our surveillance was just being applied to terrorists. Then once I discovered this stellar wind, Inspector General's report, and once I see more and more and more programs that are indiscriminate.
Those values make us who we are.
Our surveillance programs operate on the basis of the same principles as the worst governments on earth, because they are not controlled most strongly by law or by policy as by possibility.
And because we've been willing to question the actions that have been taken in its defense.
And this meant every time you made a phone call, the NSA literally got a copy of it delivered to them the next day, a record of that call, not what you said on it, but that you made it, who you made it to, when it happened, where you were, when it was made. They were tracking the locations of people around the world. Just it happened across the wire, and they happened to see it because they were creating collection platforms that meant anything that passed by their systems was, as they called, ingested, right? It was brought into our databases, and then all you had to do, think about it, you have every text message, you have every email, you have every web request, you know where every cell phone in the world is because you have access to the records of where they're located, because every cell phone, in order to function on the network, has to be paired with these cell phone towers. And all of those towers are saying, oh, I see this person at this time, they've got this phone number, we know their billing address, they live at this location. And when you take all of this in aggregate, what we were building and what we were trying to store to a greater and greater distance every year was history's first permanent record of everyone's life. I've been working at the CIA, connecting and routing the flow of intelligence. And I've been working in Japan, creating a backup system that made sure all of these things we were moving around, all of these secrets we were stealing, would be saved and stored and backed up. So even if a building was blown up, nothing would ever be lost. And then finally, working at the CIA, or rather working at Dell for the CIA at a very senior technical level, where I'm sitting down with the CTOs and the CIOs of the Central Intelligence Agency, trying to solve their technology problems. I'm proposing to build a new private cloud system. And what this means is all of the information that we moved around, all of the information that we saved and stored forever can now be reached by anyone everywhere who works at this agency.
Well, Mr. Childs, I agree with President Eisenhower and Attorney General Brownell that the time has come when we must pass some legislation in this field. The invasion of privacy is repugnant to all Americans, and properly so. But after all, in the case of searches and seizures, under proper regulations, we do permit it. It is necessary, it seems to me, in the case of crimes involving the national security, like treason, sabotage, espionage, and so on, to pass legislation in this field. Now, when it comes to the type of legislation which is to be adopted, rather naturally, I favor a bill of which I'm the author, which has already passed the subcommittee of the House Judiciary Committee, which requires going to a court to get a court order in order to intercept communications in these limited class of cases, and it also imposes serious criminal penalties in the case of illegal wiretapping, not in accordance with the rather confined terms of the bill.
In other words, limited wiretap.
That's right.
Thank you, Congressman Keating. And now, Senator Morris, what is your view about legalizing wiretap?
Well, in this short program, I'm going to base my opposition to any proposal to legalize wiretapping on the basis of language and statements of policy already contained in United States Supreme Court decisions. I want to make very clear some of the language is from dissenting opinions, some from majority opinions, although I think the first language which I shall use from a dissenting opinion, it would very likely be majority language if the similar case were before the Supreme Court today. Of course, in the famous Olmstead case in 1928, the Supreme Court, by a 5-4 decision, ruled that wiretapping did not violate the Fourth and Fifth Amendments, the fourth relating to searches and seizures, and the fifth, of course, to self-incrimination. But a great dissent was written. In fact, 3 great dissenting judges dissented in that case, Holmes and Stone and Brandeis. And the great Holmes said in this decision, and I read from page 470, "It also is desirable that the government should not itself foster and pay for other crimes when they are the means by which the evidence is to be obtained." And in my judgment, it's difficult for me to escape the fact that when government officials engage in wiretapping, they are engaging in a form of criminal conduct, and I don't think that we should impose it upon the American people, because it is a serious violation, in my judgment, of the precious right of privacy, the right to keep the American home the free man's castle. But now listen to Brandeis in his dissent in this famous Olmstead case. He said, "The evil incident to invasion of the privacy of the telephone is far greater than that involved in tampering with the mails. Whenever a telephone line is tapped, the privacy of the persons at both ends of the line is invaded, and all conversations between them upon any subject, and although proper, confidential, and privileged, may be overheard. Moreover, the tapping of one man's telephone line involves the tapping of the telephone of every other person whom he may call or who may call him."
The more we learn about the breadth and depth of the NSA and GHCQ's programs of spying on the general public, the more alarming it all becomes. The most recent stories about the deliberate sabotage of security technology are the full stop at the end of a sentence that started on 8th of August, when the founder of Lavabet, the privacy-oriented email provider used by whistleblower Edward Snowden, abruptly shut down, with its founder Ladar Levinson obliquely implying that he'd been ordered to secretly subvert his own system to compromise his users' privacy. It doesn't really matter if you trust the good spies of America and the UK not to abuse their powers, though even the NSA now admits to routine abuse. You should still be wary of deliberately weakened security. It is laughable to suppose that the backdoors that the NSA has secretly inserted into common technologies will only be exploited by the NSA. There are plenty of crooks, foreign powers, and creeps who will devote themselves to picking away patiently at the systems that make up the world and guard its wealth and security, that is, your wealth and security. And whatever sneaky tools the NSA has stashed for itself in your operating system, hardware, applications, and services, they will surely find and exploit.
when you think about what the CIA does, when you think about what the NSA does, you're at least supposed to think that they spy on bad guys, right? Define them how you will, but they're looking at particularized people where they have a suspicion they're engaged in some kind of wrongdoing. Well, the systems that I built, the systems that my generation had built, had produced a system that instead spied on everyone.
As president, I took an oath to defend the Constitution, and I have no greater responsibility than to protect our people, our freedom, and our way of life.
How long were you able to stay in?
On September the 11th, 2001, our freedom and way of life came under attack by brutal enemies who killed nearly 3,000 innocent Americans. We're fighting these enemies across the world. Yet in this first war of the 21st century, one of the most critical battlefronts is the home front. And since September the 11th, we've been on the offensive against the terrorists plotting within our borders. One of the first actions we took to protect America after our nation was attacked was to ask Congress to pass the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act tore down the legal and bureaucratic wall that kept law enforcement and intelligence authorities from sharing vital information about terrorist threats. And the Patriot Act allowed federal investigators to pursue terrorists with tools they already used against other criminals. Congress passed this law with a large bipartisan majority.
On a secret facility that was installed at the Folsom Street office, which I arrived at that office about a year later. So by the time I arrived there, I already knew there was something secret going on. Well, I was assigned to the internet room, so I was on top of the equipment. And one of the central pieces of equipment there was what they call a splitter. And the major internet cables that carry everybody's internet traffic, phone conversations, email, were run through this splitter. And what the splitter does is make a copy of the entire data stream. It does not select anything in particular. Makes a copy, and that copy is sent down to the secret room to engineering document show.
And so the net effect of this is what was happening?
What was happening, the effect of this was there was a vacuum cleaner sweep of the entire internet data flow going into the secret room. There's no selection here at all. It's domestic traffic as well as international traffic. All mixed together. And so it could be no email to your grandma or somebody abroad making an email. So there's no selection, it's all mixed together.
When you spoke to your managers about this, what did they say?
Well, by the time I got there, it was already established and it was kind of a secret operation. I mean, it didn't seem like a strong idea to ask a lot of questions about it. And I had just saved my job getting into that office at the last minute. So I didn't want to make a big stink about what was going on there. I just made some mental notes. But it disturbed me that they were copying everything. And this includes phone conversations as well.
At the same time that Americans were being told what?
Well, at that time, Americans were being told practically nothing.
Because it hadn't been in the press.
Right. After I retired, and then in December '05, when the New York Times revealed that there was some big relentless spying program going on, then I felt maybe I should come forward with what I know, because what the White House was saying was not true. The White House was trying to portray it as we're just looking at international communications and a handful of people who might be making phone calls to the Middle East or something like that. And actually, I knew they're looking at a huge amount of domestic communications. And it's not a handful of people. It's millions of Americans with ordinary communications.
And certainly we must have been surprised.
And I personally believe that wiretapping is a violation of our Fourth Amendment constitutional rights. And because I will be voting for the first time in the upcoming 2008 election, I want to know what I, as a new voter, can do to prevent further infringement of my rights.
Well, the first thing you can do is tell all your senators and congressmen not to give immunity to the telecom companies, because at this point it looks like the best way for the information to come might differ with EFF was that